Take a good look at this face. A 66-year-old woman with silvering hair and a gaze that reflects poise and dignity. It is almost impossible to believe that the U.S. government considers her one of the most devastating spies in its entire history. Her colleagues at the Pentagon, admiring her unparalleled expertise on Cuban affairs, dubbed her the Queen of Cuba. They had no idea that she truly was Cuba's Queen of Spies, operating right in the heart of Washington. How did she manage, for 17 years, to deceive not only the world's most powerful intelligence agencies, but even her own closest family members, some of whom actually worked for the FBI? Hello, and welcome to the Profile channel. Here, we tell the stories of the most influential figures in contemporary history. If you are fascinated by stories of mystery and intrigue, subscribe to our channel and help the Profile community grow by liking and sharing this video. The story of Ana Montes began long before September 21st, 2001, the day the handcuffs finally clicked shut around her wrists. For nearly a decade, American intelligence agencies knew they were bleeding. A high-level leak was funneling the nation's most classified secrets directly to Havana. But who was it? Peter Lapp, the FBI special agent tasked with the case, would later describe the mission as finding a needle in a haystack. And that haystack had been deliberately grown through a clever Cuban ruse. By feeding the Americans misleading intelligence, the Cubans made it appear as though their spy was a man. This simple trick vastly expanded the scope of the search, forcing the hunters to chase the wrong target. They had no idea that Cuba's most dangerous asset wasn't a man, but a woman they passed every day in the hallways of the Pentagon. This is where the story reaches its peak of complexity. That missing needle was none other than Ana Montes, a senior analyst for the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. Her specific job? To analyze the policies and threats posed by the Cuban government. In other words, the very person responsible for identifying the threat from Cuba was the threat herself. This level of deep infiltration didn't happen overnight. The story of Ana Montes and Cuba began long before she spent a single day working for the U.S. government. She wasn't a disgruntled employee who was later bribed or blackmailed. She was, from the very beginning, a dedicated operative chosen for a long-term, deep cover mission. Unlike many Cold War-era spies, Ana's motivation wasn't money. She was a true believer. During her university years, as she witnessed the interventionist policies of the United States in Central American countries like El Salvador and Nicaragua, she came to a radical conclusion. Washington was a destructive force in the region that had to be stopped. This deep-seated conviction made her the ideal target for Cuban intelligence. They identified and recruited her before she had even finished her studies. It was a cold, calculated, and flawless plan. In 1985, Ana Montes entered the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, not just as a job seeker, but as a special agent of the Cuban intelligence service. Her best cover was her own brilliance. She performed her duties with absolute perfection. As Peter Lapp noted, every stellar report she wrote and every sharp analysis she provided was another brick in the wall of security she built around herself. No one suspects their most dedicated and talented employee. She climbed the career ladder rapidly, soon becoming the Pentagon's most important analyst on Cuban affairs. Her expertise was so profound and her knowledge so vast that her colleagues gave her a nickname, a mix of respect and admiration that would later become a piece of dark historical irony. They called her the Queen of Cuba. Little did they know, the title was far more literal than they could have ever imagined. For 17 years, Ana Montes managed a flawless double life. She didn't need the classic tools of espionage, no hidden cameras, no microfilms. Her primary weapon was her mind. Jim Popkin, the author of a definitive book on Montes, explains that one reason she remained undetected for so long was her unique method. Every day at work, with calm and patience, she would read through hundreds of pages of highly classified documents, committing them to her extraordinary photographic memory. The real work, however, began at home. There, she would type up the information she had memorized on a simple Toshiba laptop, encrypting it with complex codes. She then transmitted these secrets to her handlers in the Cuban intelligence service via shortwave radio and covert communication channels. The information she compromised was staggering. Most dangerous of all were the real identities of American undercover agents operating on Cuban soil, information that directly put their lives at risk. But her betrayal didn't stop there. She revealed the existence of a multi-billion-dollar top-secret U.S. spy satellite, a satellite that monitored not only Cuba, but Russia, China, and Iran as well. The sheer scale of this damage led intelligence officials to later label her one of the most devastating spies in American history, and perhaps the most damaging female spy the world has ever seen. Yet for Montes, this double life wasn't just about deceiving the nation's highest security networks. It meant lying to the people closest to her, her own family. This is where the story takes a tragic and unbelievable turn. 4 of her immediate family members, including her sister, Lucy, worked for the FBI, the very organization that spent years trying to hunt down the Cuban mole. They, like the rest of the world, had no inkling of Ana's secret life. When she was finally caught, they were met with a soul-crushing reality. This was Ana's greatest and most painful betrayal. A betrayal that didn't happen in the hallways of the Pentagon, but in the heart of her own home. By the year 2000, the circle of suspicion was gradually tightening. The breadcrumbs, though faint, were all pointing toward Ana Montes. FBI Special Agent Peter Lapp was the man tasked with focusing the investigation on her. But Lapp knew he was playing a high-stakes game. Any wrong move could alert the Queen of Cuba, giving her the chance to flee or destroy the evidence. He had to move with absolute precision. Initially, his goal wasn't just to prove she was spying. He needed to be certain that, after a decade-long search, they had finally found the right person. For months, Lapp's team kept Montes under constant, invisible surveillance. They tracked her every move, scrutinized her phone calls, and looked for the slightest crack in her armor. But Montes was a seasoned professional, incredibly cautious and disciplined. She left no trail. For a while, it seemed as though this long pursuit might end in a dead end. Then came the turning point in 2001. Using a secret warrant, FBI agents entered her apartment while she was away. They searched every inch of the home, looking for the one missing piece of this complex puzzle. And finally, in the bedroom, tucked away under her bed, they found it. A Toshiba laptop. When FBI technical experts analyzed the device, they discovered a treasure trove of evidence far beyond their wildest expectations. It contained over a decade's worth of highly classified documents, detailed intelligence reports, and direct instructions from the Cuban intelligence service. For Peter Lapp, it was the end of a long, exhausting hunt. The ghost finally had a face. There was no longer any room for doubt. Ana Montes, the Pentagon's top analyst, was a Cuban spy. The FBI immediately began planning her arrest, knowing they had to strike before she realized her cover had been blown. The countdown to the end of her 17-year double life had begun. On September 21, 2001, just 10 days after the 9/11 attacks had left America in a state of total shock, the FBI launched the operation to take down Ana Montes. They lured her to a conference room at the Pentagon under the guise of an urgent briefing regarding terrorist threats. There, Peter Lapp and his team were waiting. When Montes walked into the room, she was confronted with a reality that shattered her world. She was told she was under arrest for conspiracy to commit espionage for the Cuban government. When investigators later asked her why she did it, her answer was chillingly simple. Because my conscience would not allow me to allow the U.S. to do what it was doing. She believed that through sanctions and intervention, the United States was keeping the people of Latin America in a state of poverty and suffering. In her mind, her espionage wasn't an act of treason, but a form of social justice, a way to help oppressed nations. This is the most dangerous kind of spy. Not someone motivated by greed or blackmailed into service, but a true believer who is convinced that their betrayal is a moral mission. She famously told agents she never took a single penny from Cuba. The news of her arrest sent shockwaves through the intelligence community and, most devastatingly, through her own family. For her sister Lucy, who was still working at the FBI, the revelation was a mix of anger, grief, and a strange sense of clarity. She finally understood the source of the coldness and distance that had grown between them over the years. The wall between the sisters wasn't a family feud, it was a deep ideological chasm. To avoid a public trial that could have exposed even more national secrets, Montes pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. She spent most of her sentence in a high-security federal prison in Texas. Finally, on January 6, 2023, after serving more than 20 years, Ana Montes was released. Now, 66 years old, she has returned to her home in Puerto Rico, stating she hopes to live a quiet, private life. However, her first public statement after her release proved that the Queen of Cuba hasn't retreated an inch from her convictions. She urged people to focus on important issues, like the struggles of Puerto Rico or the suffocating U.S. sanctions on Cuba, asking, "Who in the last 60 years has asked the Cuban people if they want such sanctions?" For Peter Lapp and the agents who spent a career hunting her, her release feels like a gut punch. But the story of Ana Montes is not just a simple spy tale. It is a story of how a deep-seated belief can drive an individual to betray their country, their colleagues, and even their own blood. What do you think? Does the interventionist history of a superpower justify an individual committing treason against their own nation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the Profile channel and like this video to support us.